Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Divine Junk Healing Through Laughter. I'm so glad you're all able to be here with me today. I am so happy to be able to have Jenni Russell on the show today. I've gotten to know you through our podcast group. And I think, we've suddenly become a kindred spirit and soul. And I just adore you and just really felt compelled that I needed to hear, or people needed to hear you and who you are and just kind of share yourself with everybody. So thank you for taking the time to come on and spend some time with me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me and for those lovely words. I'll always be happy to hear them about me. That's okay. You can keep going if you'd like.
Okay. I can do that. I can do that.
No, don't. It's okay.
No, yeah. So I've heard about what your podcast is, and we've had many off-camera long conversations, which I've absolutely loved. And so if you could just tell everybody the name of your podcast and just kind of where that came from and what made you compelled to start podcasting.
Yeah, absolutely. So my podcast is called The Art of Finding Joy, and it launches at the beginning of January. And I mean, it really came from wanting to speak with people that have prioritized their own happiness over doing the things that we're told we're supposed to do, or doing all the right things. Because so often we get told, oh, just cheer up, just be happy. And it's like, yeah, but how do you find that joy, and how do you find what makes you feel fulfilled and in purpose?
Yes.
It's a bit of a black box. And then once you find it, you're like, oh, that was so simple. Life is so much better now. But I really want to open up conversations to show people that everyone can achieve this if it's something that they want.
Yes.
And I guess for myself, this came when I was dealing with a lot of health issues and very severe pain, and I was absolutely miserable. And I knew that something had to change, because I couldn't keep on living my life this way. And I didn't want to wake up in the morning and just wish that it was night already. And I didn't want to, constantly just be focusing on pain, not knowing how I was going to get through the next 5 minutes.
Yes.
And I had hope, but I didn't know how to use it in a way to make my life better. So I realized that my life, even if it didn't look like other people's, it could still be really great, because I could choose joy for myself.
Yes.
And so I started by promising myself that I would find one thing a day that I was grateful for and that made me happy. And at the beginning, it was something super simple. It was like, I made my bed, I brushed my teeth,
yes.
I drank enough water, my coffee tasted nice. It was really simple. And it was just a practice of committing to the promise I'd made to myself. Yes. And building some self-trust and some self-connection, because I had really lost my way. And I don't think I could have been happy without also starting to like myself and love myself again. Yes. That was gone. And so it wasn't an overnight thing, but that one thing a day then became 2 things a day, and 3. And it got to the point where I didn't need to remind myself to pick out something, because my brain now just did that automatically.
Yeah.
And that was how I brought more laughter into my life again. I knew that when I could stop comparing my life to other people's, I could find that there were things that I was doing now, even if all I did was spend the day on the couch, that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
I smiled and I laughed and I loved myself, and I was able to change the way, like, I was able to change my perspective about everything. And it was really difficult, and I was lucky that I kind of had an instinct on how to do it. And I also had my mom, who was so supportive of coming onto a more spiritual journey and changing my perspective about things. But I wanted to create my podcast to, lead the way a little bit and just make having joy in your life more attainable.
Love that. Because you're so right. So many people don't love themselves and don't know how to find it. And it's that baby steps. And we need to celebrate the baby steps that we take. As you said, there's a lot of comparison that goes on with people, and that's just a natural thing we do. So we always look for the home runs. And I like to say, we have to do the base hits, which is more the baseball game, before we can hit the home run, which are not very often for normal people. So celebrate the baby steps, the base hits that you get every day that goes towards what your goal is. And then to love yourself and give yourself permission.
Yeah. But the thing is that joy is in the journey. Like, those home runs are great.
Yes.
But when we're able to find the joy in the little things, and we're able to celebrate the little victories, that's pure happiness.
Yes.
Because that happiness is not dependent on a result, is not dependent on other things. It's just you. And joy is in the journey, but it's really in the journey of being authentic.
Yes.
And that's why creating a relationship with yourself is so important.
Yes.
Because I remember, there would be stretches of pain, and by the third day I, was going crazy in my mind. And I was sitting one day and I thought, like, all these really horrible things were coming in my mind, like, you're so pathetic and your body's failing and can't you just get up, you're so lazy, and all these awful things. And for the first time I heard them and I could notice them, because before they were just this autopilot dialogue, internalizing these messages without even realizing that they were going on. And so I heard them and I could notice them. And that was step one. And then after a little while, I was able to notice them and stop them. I say, I don't think that's right. And then as my relationship with myself started to grow and improve, I could notice them, stop them, and replace them with something nice. But I couldn't replace them with good things until I actually believed those good things. I didn't want to lie to myself.
Yeah.
But, I deserved to be kind to myself. I replaced it with things like, wow, your body is working so hard.
Yeah.
And isn't that amazing? And aren't I so grateful? And aren't I so proud? And my body's not fighting, like waging a war against me. Me and my body are working together to get through this hard thing. And there were so many little changes like that, really helped me cultivate a sense of ease and a sense of peace in my life. Because I was able to accept the things that were, and change the things that I could. And that was enough. That was great. And I also want to say that I talk about it in steps, and this is how it happened. But it was not always linear. You know, sometimes I would be able to say really nice things to myself, and then the next day, all I could do was just notice this stream of nastiness. And just being able to sit in that discomfort and recognize that it's okay if it's not one straight line, but you know, the fact that healing is a really long squiggly line, you know, that comes with practice too, to just be able to accept what is.
Yes.
But you know, don't be disheartened if you were able to, if you had a really great day and you found things to be grateful for and you were laughing, and then the next day it's not like that. Please don't
Yes.
be disheartened, because you're still on the journey.
And that, as you know, resonates so much with me, because you had a chronic illness, or have a chronic illness, because that really never goes away. And I'm also have a chronic illness, and there's so many people out there that have chronic illnesses and are going through these things. And whatever, you know, as you said, we become unkind to ourselves because we're thinking what the outside world is thinking of us. You know, it's like, oh, you know, they look at me and say, oh my God, for the love of God, have a salad, which has nothing to do with it, but that's people's perception. And once we get past the perception of other people, which is so difficult, then we can start giving ourselves permission to be who we are. And I love that you said it's not a war. Your body's not having a war with you. And I felt that, because I sometimes think, like, why don't you like me? My body. Why are you doing this to me? I'm a nice person, you know, I'm authentic, I give, I, you know, serve. And why is this happening to me? So finding that and changing the language and our self-talk, our inner critic, it's like, it's a changing a mindset, which is very difficult while you're still dealing with all of this. And what you said is absolutely beautiful. And I was like, yes, you know, allow yourself to have bad days, recognize the good days, and know that, you know, you just got to keep going forward, because we don't have any other choice. People say, oh, you're so strong. I had no other choice but to be strong.
You just
I wasn't given a choice.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, the steps that, and so how long was your when did your chronic illness start?
Well, I first had this pain when I was a kid. I remember leaning over the sink to do the dishes with my brother when I was about 8 or 9, and I had this pain, and I remember saying, oh, my back hurts, and someone went, oh, stop trying to get out of the dishes, like, just get on with it. And because it would always like come on by me bending forward, obviously most kind of chores were difficult, but I never complained because nobody else was complaining. And I thought, oh, this must be normal. And then the one time I did, obviously I got told off. And so it just kind of went like that. And then my periods were very painful when I was a teenager, and my back pain and leg pain, it was kind of like a nerve pain in that area. And that would get worse with my period. So then I kind of thought, oh, it's period related. And it wasn't, you know, that pain kind of was always there, but it was just my normal.
Yes.
And I'd gone to see a few people, and I'd always been told that there was nothing wrong. So it wasn't really until I went to university that I, you know, again, it was impacting my daily life, but still, you just got on with it. And when I started my first job, that's really when it started to become a big problem, because I wasn't working on my own time anymore. You know, there was a schedule in the office, and I remember at one point I had to call in sick when I had my period, and my boss said to me, are you okay? I was like, oh yeah, I'm absolutely fine. It's fine as long as I don't move. I'm like, I think my definition of fine needs some refining. But I believe that. As long as I don't move, I'm fine. And I'm like, okay. And
Yeah.
yeah. And then life went on, and my periods just kept getting more painful. And I think also I was going through a lot of stress, and that kind of was a big trigger for it too.
Yeah.
And then I had a surgery to where I was diagnosed with endometriosis. And I woke up from surgery, and I had this stabbing pain in my leg and in my pelvis, and it was really horrific. It was so bad. And this doctor just laughed at me and said, we didn't go anywhere near that. I don't know what that is. And I couldn't even put any weight on my leg for 2 weeks. They just went, oh, we don't know. They're like, we found some endometriosis, we moved it. That was the only thing there. Okay, bye. And after that, everything just kind of kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I was in constant 24/7 pain. I had the pelvic pain and the back pain. And even though endometriosis made sense, it didn't tick all the boxes.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years later, I tried everything, literally everything I knew to try. Hormone therapies, pain therapies, an inpatient pain clinic, which was exactly not what I needed, but my insurance said I needed to go, and as
Yes.
you do. And crazy, weird therapies, everything. And I ended up having another surgery. This was about 2 years later, not quite 2 years later. And it was quite scary because they'd really prepared for the worst. They'd said you might wake up with a colostomy bag, and which luckily didn't happen. I'm very thankful for that. But you go in thinking, okay, well,
Yes.
the chips will fall where they may. And
Yeah.
it was on multiple organs. And I woke up and the surgery went well, but my leg was numb. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't move it, nothing. And this lasted for about 5 days. And the weird thing is that I was so used to my feet kind of losing feeling, or them going a bit fuzzy, or pins and needles or something, and everything, it would just always be something, that I didn't even question the fact that my leg was numb. I know that sounds so silly, but I guess when your perception of your body is a bit warped when just weird things happen all the time.
Yes.
And it wasn't until a doctor walked in on the 5th day and he went, so Miss Russell, let's talk about this paralysis. And you're like, excuse me? We don't use that word in here. My jokes quickly turned into, excuse me? And
yes.
Then they started to run some tests, and they suspected that there was endometriosis on the sciatic nerve, which is rare, but it's not as rare as you think it is.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's a very, very difficult surgery, and very specialized. And they basically said, we can't do it here. So you should talk to a psychologist if the pain gets worse. Which,
sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I said, I find that with chronic pain that, you get shuffled off a lot.
Yeah.
Because people don't know why. If it's not, this and this and this, you said, well, we only went in here, so anything out of that is not my business. That's not what I do. Is that I find they're willing to, figure out what is wrong. And we get ignored, we get shuffled off, we get, it's in your head, it's, you need to just find happy, get whatever it is, and this will go away. And it irritates me because that's not it at all. And I think chronic illness is so under talked about and understood that I'm glad that you're sharing your story with us, because again, I have a chronic illness as well, and it's frustrating. And what you've gone through is just amazing. And I know that there's more to this story, but it just shows that it lasts. I mean, chronic pain is not something that just comes and goes. It's there for a long time, if not ever, for some people. And you live in another country, which also, makes it different for where I'm in Canada, and people who are in the US understand that, where you're in Germany right now. So again, the system is completely different than what we know. So when we hear, we think, oh, wait, then this and this and this, but that's not how it works over there, and how you had to maneuver the system to get what you needed.
Yeah. It's yeah. And also doing it in a different language. I mean, I don't know
Yes.
why I decided to make things so much harder for myself, but there you go. And even, you really have to become the detective.
Yes.
If you don't push forward, things don't move.
Absolutely right.
And, and that's why it was so important for me as well to be able to live well in the meantime.
Yeah.
Because, to an extent, you don't have control over how long this process takes.
Yeah.
There's so many other moving parts. And so, it's like, even when I went to this pain clinic and I spent 3 weeks there, and you did all sorts of different things there, it's funny because I had gone there expecting that they would do a lot more investigation and figure out what the issue was. And this is just anecdotal, but I think to some extent it is true that with the men, they were doing more investigations and they were doing scans and they were looking into things. And with the women, it tended to be more, here's antidepressants. And I found that very difficult. And they also said to me, we're very impressed with how you deal with this. You're not anxious, you're not depressed, but you've tried every single thing already that we would suggest. And so this is just going to be your life. You just have to accept that this is going to be your life forever. And you need to stop having hope that things can change, because when you have hope, then you get disappointed and it's harder and harder to crawl yourself out of these disappointments. And I just turned to her and I said, I completely agree and believe that it's important to accept the situation for what it is right now. I refuse to believe that this is forever. And, I also knew then at that point, because I think at this point I was 8 months into my kind of journey to finding joy and living well. And I really had found a lot of peace. I was in a good place.
Yeah.
And when I started to live in more gratitude, I did notice there was a drop in my pain. I didn't freak out when I had big pain flares. I was able to just ride them out. I was able to stay calm. I was able to focus on other things and still feel fulfilled.
Mm.
And when the pain stopped, it kind of plateaued. And I was like, okay, well, whatever's left, that's the physical thing that needs to be treated. And it gave me a lot more confidence to say, no, I know that this is not psychosomatic, and we still need to look further.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to, and that's okay. But something I really have an issue with is that if it's not in the set box of symptoms that you can just tick off, or the very obvious diagnosis, and then the doctor doesn't know what the issue is, it then becomes your fault.
Yes.
That it's psychosomatic or in your head.
Yes.
And I would have so much respect for doctors if they said to me, I don't know what this is. either I'm going to refer you to a colleague who can help you because this is not my area,
Mm-hmm.
or if you would like, let's try to figure it out together.
Yeah.
It's okay to not have the answers.
Yes.
But don't bullshit me.
Yes.
Don't gaslight me that if you don't know the answer, then therefore must be my fault. You know? And so I think this is such a big issue, especially with women's health, that we are told to doubt our own bodies. And we are told that we're not a reliable driver in our own car. But, you know, everybody else's opinion, doctors, family, bosses, friends, whoever it is, you know, you can listen to them and they might have really good advice for you. But at the end of the day, it's your choice about which direction the car goes in. It's not the doctor in the driver's seat, it's you. Mm-hmm. And that is so empowering because you get to say no if it's not something you want to do or it's something that doesn't feel right. Mm-hmm. And so often we're so desperate for help.
Yes.
That even if it's something we don't want to do, you know, we walk into an appointment thinking, I don't want to do that. And then the doctor says, well, this is the only option, otherwise I can't help you. And you go, okay, well, I don't have any other option, so I'll just do it.
Yes.
And I've been in that situation. And even though I knew it was something that I really didn't want to do, and I also knew it was something that had a lot of very dangerous side effects that my doctor actually hadn't told me about, I still was like, well, I don't know who else to go to.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. And I think me as a woman who is able to do my own research and, you know, make educated decisions. Mm-hmm. And, you know, a lot of the time I wasn't a very good advocate for myself, but I've learned how to do that.
Yeah.
If I have found it this difficult, what about other people?
Yes. Yes.
And we need to open up the conversation about, you know, chronic illness and about advocating for yourself and about listening to your body.
Yes.
You know, yes. I remember when I first stopped working, I had to stop working because it just got to the point where I couldn't cope with it. And my boss said to me, so what do you do all day? And I was like, I felt so uncomfortable. I was like, oh, I don't know. Well, yeah, I like, and I felt so insecure about the fact that all I was doing was resting.
Yes.
And now I would say, I'm not on holiday, I'm sick. When you've got the flu, you spend 5 days in bed and that's perfectly acceptable. Well, that's the same, but it doesn't go away. And if you're sick of hearing about it, imagine what it's like living with it. Mm. And because sometimes I get so conscious about talking about it.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm managing other people's expectations. Mm-hmm. And every time there was a misdiagnosis, you know, someone says, how was this scan? Or how was this appointment? You say, oh, well, it's this. And then 2 months later, it's changed. And I like, I'm the one that's being flaky, you know, and it's so difficult to just keep your own emotions in check sometimes.
Yeah.
That you know, or I did at least, my circle of friends got a lot smaller because I didn't have any updates except for really personal things.
Yeah.
And so it was just a few people that kind of knew the story. So if my only update was, I felt really rubbish yesterday, that was okay.
Yeah.
Because even with them, I felt uncomfortable with expressing how bad something was or that something had changed, and I would downplay it with them, and I would on the one hand not want to show this vulnerability of struggling, and on the other hand, I mean, it's completely irrational, but I was upset that they didn't see how hard it was. Like, yes, but Jenni, that's because you're really good at hiding it. You did that on purpose.
Absolutely. 100%. We do
Yeah.
that. Yes.
So,
Yes.
you get to choose who to let in and who not to let in.
Yeah.
But I think there's a pressure to keep up the facade.
Yes.
And when I found people that I did not have to pretend with anymore,
Yeah.
it's like, these are my people.
Yes.
The people that just got it.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why the chronic illness community is so fabulous, because you don't have to explain why you have to cancel something at the last minute, because they also just understand that. You don't have to send a text message, I'm so sorry I missed this, and I'm so sorry I have to cancel, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're apologizing on behalf of something that we don't have any control over.
Absolutely. Because there's so much shame around this. So much shame. And as you said, in all those levels, it's what people say to us, and friends and people that okay, so how did your test and stuff go? What's negative? Oh, well, that's great. But then something else pops up and it's like, oh, again, okay. And so you stop talking about it. And my friends have given me a smack on the nose many times about this, because then I stopped telling, even my family, I stopped telling them, because it's always seems to be something. And then I think, so I start making decisions for people of what they're thinking and saying, I'm not going to share this with them because now they're tired of hearing about it, which is not fair to them. But because once you find your tribe, they don't care. They will hear it 100 times. But there's this other big group of people is who we're comparing ourselves to, where the shame, as your boss, you couldn't even tell them that you were resting. And I 100% know that. Well, what do? Well, I'm busy doing that, but I'm not because I can't. But we feel we need to justify why we're at home.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to say something that is so important. Rest is productive.
Yes.
That is one of the most important things. That is your job that day. You are doing your job by having a nap, by zoning out, by just relaxing on the sofa. That is your job, because rest is productive. Because if we don't rest, we will then have to spend much longer recovering. Mm-hmm. And if we don't rest, we also cannot show up the way we want to for the other things. Because our energy is so precious, and we save up all those days to be able to go and do that one thing.
Yes.
And if we don't rest, then we don't even get the joy of doing that one thing. And so on those days where you feel bad and you feel guilty, please tell yourself that rest is productive.
And love that. It is. And
also, going back to the language that we use, I also found that changing the way that I communicated, instead of saying, sorry, I can't come, I would say, thank you for the invitation, and thank you for understanding that I'm not able to make it.
Yes.
Always turn it into a positive, and the people that don't understand that, they're not your people.
Yes. I love that. Because we apologize for everything.
Yeah.
I'm a Canadian. We apologize for everything.
I'm English. We apologize too.
Yes. Sorry. Oh, sorry. That's not even my fault, but sorry. Right? It's just what we do.
Yeah. Someone bumps into you and you're the one apologizes.
Oh, sorry.
Do that all the time. Yeah.
Yes, that's what we do. So to first thing, and I do it myself. I'm sure we all do. We're all going, oh, I do that. Text, sorry, I can't come. Sorry, I have to change. Sorry. So I love that. That, as you said, just by changing the language it's a positive versus, oh my God, I'm sorry. Now you think they're going to be angry and you're trying to explain yourself so they're not disappointed or angry in you. And it's like, okay, why do we do that? Why do we do that? So I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to have a chronic illness. It's so hard.
But also, I 100% do not want to go through it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel very grateful for the fact that I had the time, forced time, but I
Yes.
had the time to really question a lot of the things in my life and what I liked and what I didn't like. And when I had to stop working, my illness had got to the point where all I did was work and sleep. And when I stopped working, that was really my identity. And I had, my quarter life crisis. And I was like, well, what do I actually want to do? What's important to me? Who am I outside of meeting these deadlines and getting approval and praise from this person, and having to sit with my emotions and physically not being able to run away? And so you're like, well, okay, time to face the music. And it was
Yes.
hard. It was so uncomfortable. But I was able to fall in love with myself,
Mm.
And how lucky am I that I get to live the rest of my life learning lessons that other people often don't learn until much later in life.
Yes.
And I get to live my life in this capacity, with this gratitude and with this joy, and also knowing exactly who my people are and which people I need to let go of, and lovingly just, letting them go.
Yeah.
And meeting people like you that get it, and there is a bond, there is a special understanding.
Yeah.
I also feel grateful to have had a chronic illness in the time of the internet.
Yeah. Yes. Because you can research and, and I've done that. I've brought papers and said, okay, because mine's very rare as well. It's like, okay, yeah, of course it is. And I've done a lot and they didn't know what to do with it. There's nobody in Canada that actually treats this. But it's about being the advocate. It's about, researching and finding out, because in your heart, there's something else. I refuse to accept your opinion, and you're allowed to have your opinion, but I, in my heart, do not believe that was the answer.
Yeah.
And hearing, live with it. No, and if you have to, then what are the skills I need to learn in order to have a life that I love?
Yeah. Well, so much of healthcare is just about life and death.
Yes.
It's not about quality of life.
Yeah.
And without social media, I dread to think how much longer it would have taken me.
Yeah.
Because, when I got told, numb leg, go see a psychologist, it was social media. It was from my own research that I knew of someone who could potentially help me. And I reached out to them and had to fill out all these forms of where's the pain and all the symptoms and all that kind of stuff. And they'd said to me that I was going to have to travel there for an appointment to see if surgery was needed. And after I filled out the forms, I said, oh, actually, you don't need to do that. We can just have a Zoom call. I was like, okay, cool, great. Saves me a trip. Because it wasn't in Germany. There was no one in Germany that did it. And I had the Zoom call, and the first thing they said to me was, so I think we have a problem here. I was like, well, I could have told you that for free. But yes, I'm glad you agree. They said, yeah, we definitely need to do surgery. You have to heal from the first one that you just had, but then it's quite urgent. So it was a real faff to try and get everything together, and in the middle of a pandemic, and the first time traveling after Brexit, and nightmare. I was on my own. And anyway, I say I was on my own, and I was, but I had so many people step up to help me along the way.
Yes.
People
Yeah.
I didn't even know that well.
Aw.
And yeah, I truly believe that, you are so supported and so loved by the universe, and it will
Yes.
come to help you if you ask for it.
Yes.
And so I got there and I met the surgeon, and I felt very safe and had the surgery. And when I woke up, my leg was numb again, but it was planned this time. So, that. And it wasn't a sciatic endometriosis, but it was, it was called a vascular entrapment. So a vein was in the wrong place, and it was trapping all the nerves in the sacral plexus and the sciatic nerve, because it was so big. And that just meant that the nerves were so squished that was why every single time I moved, it was so painful, because there was just friction.
Yeah.
And it's probably something I've had since I was born. Also the surgery, they said to me afterwards, thankfully, that it was really dangerous, but it was all no complications, everything went well. And it's now been 9 months since, and there's still parts of my leg that feel fuzzy. I don't have all the feeling back, but I've taught myself how to walk again, and
Yes.
I can do more things, and it's happening. Like I have days where I'm like, my goodness, this is going to be my life now. How incredible is that?
Yes.
And it's a different type of managing my joy now, like, because before it was like, this is my baseline of it being constant pain, and I'm just going to find the little things that make me feel better. And now it's like, you have those days that are so good, and then you have you've got one foot in the good camp and one foot in the recovering camp still.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like your feet are on two trains, and they're like going on different train tracks,
like skiing. That's me skiing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's about balance. It's about patience. It's a very humbling experience.
Yes.
And you just don't lose hope.
Yes, because hope will, as you said, you have to hold on to that, and you refuse through this whole thing to give up hope. And so many people have given up because they've been told to, or the help is not there, and then they just give up. And it's like, oh my God, like, you can't do that. And I know that there are some illnesses where there is nothing they can do, but we also have to remember we have this. And again, I go back to your comment, which just really resonates, is that the body is at war with me. Well, it's actually not. And that changes, again, the whole thing right there. It's now we got to work together instead of, doing this. So, yeah, that's an important thing, I think, for people to hear. And it can, get better. And I love that, you work, because we have to be our biggest advocate. We do. And you do, and you're just like me. I'm an investigator, right? I go and say, hey, like, what about this? What about that? And I think a lot of people don't feel that they have that voice, and they don't have, the system doesn't work like that. However, because I know the US is a lot different than us in Canada, and it's different all over, and people have all their challenges, but it's still something worth fighting for. You're worth fighting for. I'm worth fighting for. So I'm so happy, because we've talked about your story before, and I was just in awe at what you have done for yourself. Because if you hadn't done this, you wouldn't be where you were. You kept, persevering. It's that perseverance. As you kept going, you knew in your heart this was not the end. There was something out there.
And one of the reasons why it's so important to build that self-trust and that self-esteem is that you deserve to live a good life. Yes. And you deserve to be happy, and you deserve the best treatment options available to be able to live as low pain, as low symptom as possible. Yeah. And when you believe that you are deserving, you can walk into a room differently. Yes. And you can, if you're having a doctor who's being dismissive or being just awful, you can dump them. You're allowed to. You don't have to sit there and take the abuse. And, I say abuse and it sounds like a really harsh word, but someone dismissing you, that's not okay. No. That's not the way you deserve to be treated. Yeah. And, I also know that, like, I would often go to appointments by myself because I'm living away from my family. And if you brought someone else with you, you get treated better normally, especially if it's a man. Like, I've had friends tell me that they went to an appointment with their partner and the doctor would ask the partner if what they were saying was true. Wow. So you have to, it's awful. So, it's figure out what's best for you, figure out how to get your case across the best, and if that to bring someone with you to make you feel comfortable, or even just to give you that confidence boost. Yeah. Because another thing is that when we live with our symptoms for so long, we, feel the need to downplay them to a doctor as well. Or we, that fun game of, is this just a normal symptom, or is this a symptom I should be worried about? Yes. You wake up in the morning and you're like, I feel sick, but am I sick enough to call in sick? Or am I just sick enough, like normal? And we play these ridiculous, like, would you rather games in your head. And writing things down can be really helpful too. Writing your symptoms down and then going to the doctor and saying, these are the things. Yeah. And because, I have done this where, like, I had really, really bad pain, but, I'll just say, oh yeah, it was kind of bad, but it went away, and actually it didn't go away. But if you've got it written down, it's harder to ignore.
Yes.
You can give a voice memo, all sorts of things. But once you start to put things down on paper, you can realize that, you're not going crazy. You've got proof that it happened. And then you start to doubt yourself a little bit less. And that's just another way that you build this self-trust, right? Yes. Gaslighting is evil. Medical gaslighting is evil. Yeah. The psychological part of dealing with a chronic illness is one thing, but the treatment and the poor management and all of these things, that just adds to it.
Yes.
And,
yes, I agree.
And you got to find ways to deal with it.
Yeah. So amazing.
Yeah, they're not the driver.
No, you're right. And you said right at the beginning, we feel that we're not the driver in our own car. And it's so true. So true. And I was so, amazed at your story. And so, even with the podcast, The Art of Finding Joy, just what you shared with us today has even, so much, ideas and tricks and things like that we can change for people to find that joy and knowing we're deserving. And people need to hear that, not, say I'm deserving, but they also need to hear somebody say, you are deserving. I believe you are deserving, you need to. So I am so looking so forward. And I think your podcast is really going to shift people with chronic illness. Because again, it's not talked about, but people in so many other situations and whatever it is, whatever we need to find joy in our life. And again, you and I are on the same track. And you said we're talking about with COVID, how many people are depressed and doom and gloom that you hear everywhere and on the news and in newspapers and things like that. So people have changed, their mindset and everything has changed. And people are angry because we're in this and things like that. So we need to give people a space to talk about finding those things again.
Yeah. I think sometimes people feel like, it's like, it's one thing if you've got something really difficult going on, like an illness or a bad relationship or whatever it may be, grief. But when everything's going fine, people don't feel like they're allowed to say that they're unhappy. Because they're like, well, everything is, I'm ticking all the boxes and I'm doing all the right things, but is this just what life is? I don't know. And that's why part of my podcast is about people who prioritize their happiness over doing the things that they're supposed to do.
Yes.
Because, there are sometimes, we can follow these very clear lanes of finish school, maybe go to university, meet someone, get married, buy a house, have a baby. And, that can be a really good life. But it also, for some people, that's just what they know how to do. And it doesn't really make them feel fulfilled. Yes. They kind of go, I've got all these things and I like them and I'm grateful for them, but what next?
Yes.
And so we're allowed to find different pieces and put together our own puzzle. Whether it's like, I like this food, I'm going to learn how to cook it. And I want to go back to university and do this, or I want a career change, or I want to meet new people, or whatever it is. We're allowed to make our own path. And I hope that this podcast can give some inspiration about all the amazing, wonderful things there are in this world that we are allowed to experience.
Yeah.
And it's okay to start new. Hey, like we're going to be working until we're 80 at this rate. So it doesn't matter if you start a new career when you're 40. It's all okay. Yeah. Change is good. And what? Change is inevitable. Yeah. And when you can embrace it rather than be dragged along by it, you have the power to decide how it fits into your puzzle. Yes. And so I want to, open up the conversation that we don't have to live in fear and stress states. That when we have a good relationship with ourselves, we can walk into new situations knowing that even if the end game is unknown, and even if it doesn't go to plan, it doesn't matter, because we will be able to figure it out.
Yes, that's incredible. Oh, I can't wait. So when is your podcast launching? And where can people find you?
January the 4th, it's launching. All the regular podcast places. I'm on Instagram. You can follow me at _Jenni Russell, JENNI RUSSELL. And I'm going to post all my podcast stuff on Instagram, and that's where
ready to change the world.
Oh, I don't know about that, but if it helps one person, if it makes one person feel less alone, then that's good. That's really great.
And I feel you will make an impact. You will make an impact with the people that you talk to. And as you said, whether it's one person, you've made an impact. And then the other I really feel that, you're allowing people to step into this space and feel what they feel from so many different angles, because you have experience with chronic illness, which I know is a big one, and all these different things, and just, go over and above and know that they're deserving. And I think that's just beautiful. So I'm looking so forward to listening to this when it launches. And in the bio, everybody will be able to have can see the links to your podcast and Instagram and things like that. But I wanted to thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story with us. And I'm so inspired by you. And I just absolutely adore you. And I really feel that, as you said, we find our tribe, right? And it's funny how things come into place, and then you find people that you 100% connect with, who get it, who really get it. And I believe that in you. And I think you're going to have a lot of people that you're going to be able to touch and change. And I think I'm looking so forward to seeing that happen.
You're so kind to me. Thank you for saying such lovely things, and I adore you too.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful that we got to meet, and that you held this lovely conversation for me to just speak and see whatever comes out. And I know that people are gonna just love your podcast too.
So. Oh, thank you. Well, if I have people like you on there, they're gonna love it.
Oh,
Stop it. Oh, stop it. Do one of your accents. Do it.
You can't put me on the spot like this. I have to prepare.
Oh, what an amazing way to start or to end this podcast, is you having your accents, which I absolutely love. So again, thank you, Jenni. I appreciate you. I know you and I will talk again, and I'm looking forward to people plugging into your podcast.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.